Hello, my friend. Tonight we step into a place you hope you never visit, the medieval slave market. We're going to walk together, side by side, as you become a part of this brutal system. Close your eyes and imagine the acrid smell of smoke and fear hanging in the air, the distant shouts of men you don't understand, the feel of rough hands gripping your arm. You are a commodity now, a possession to be bought and sold. This isn't a story of brave knights or grand castles. This is the other side of the medieval coin. You probably won't survive this journey unscathed, at least not in the way you exist now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The scent of burning thatch and roasted wood is thick, a dark blanket over the autumn air. Just moments ago, you were standing by your family's hearth, the warmth, a comforting presence. Now, the warmth is a source of terror. The screams still echo in your ears, a chorus of panic and pain that will never truly leave you. They came swiftly, a tide of armed men, their faces hidden behind menacing helmets, and their voices a guttural roar. One moment, you were a free person in a small village, a life defined by daily chores and the familiar faces of your neighbors. The next, you are a captive, your hands bound with a coarse rope that chafes your wrists. The raiders don't care about your name, your family, or your history. To them, you're just part of the plunder, another body to be counted and marched away. You trudge forward, stumbling over the uneven ground, the sharp rocks digging into your bare feet. A few paces ahead, you see your sister, her face streaked with tears and soot, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrors your own. You try to call out to her, to offer some small comfort, but a sharp jab from a spear shaft in your back silences you. Keep moving, a voice barks, harsh and foreign. The language is a jumble of sounds you've never heard before. Historians still argue whether these initial raids were more often orchestrated by large, organized armies or by smaller, opportunistic pirate crews. But for you, the distinction is meaningless. All you know is that your world has been shattered. As you walk, your mind replays the final moments of your old life. Your father, a man you always saw as a giant, was cut down trying to defend your home. Your mother was taken, but you lost sight of her in the chaos. The sense of loss is a physical ache in your chest, a deep, hollow emptiness. It's hard to believe that this is really happening. Your life has become a bad dream, one you can't wake up from. You steal a glance at the woman next to you, a neighbor you've known your whole life. Her expression is vacant, as if her soul has already departed. You wonder if you look the same. You feel a strange detachment, as if you're watching a play, a terrible, gruesome performance you somehow got dragged into. A quirky historical fact you might not know is that in some early medieval cultures, the capture and enslavement of women was so commonplace that a bride price was sometimes paid in captured slaves instead of currency. It was a brutal way to measure wealth and power. You now represent that wealth. You are a walking, breathing coin. The men who captured you, dressed in mismatched armor and carrying rusty swords, are already calculating your value. They see your sturdy build, the calloused hands that speak of hard work, and the youth in your face. To them, you're not a person, you're an investment, a future worker, a potential breeder, a human to be bartered for goods or coin. The thought makes your stomach turn. The sun begins to set, casting long, distorted shadows of your captors onto the path ahead. The forced march continues, relentless and cruel. You look back one last time, hoping to catch a glimpse of the smoke from your village, but there is nothing, just the endless, unforgiving horizon. The cold starts to creep into your bones, a chilling reminder of your vulnerability. You are a piece of meat being driven to market, and your only hope is that you don't get separated from your sister, who is now the only family you have left in this nightmare. As you stumble forward, you can't help but think about the stories your grandmother used to tell tales of monsters and spirits that lived in the dark woods. You now realize the true monsters don't live in the woods. They walk right beside you, and they wear human skin. The first step of your new life has begun. The march continues, an endless trudge that seems to stretch for days. The sun rises and sets, painting the sky in fiery hues you're too exhausted to appreciate. Your feet, once accustomed to soft grass and well-trod dirt paths, are now a map of blisters and cuts. Each step is a fresh stab of pain. You feel your muscles screaming in protest, a dull ache that has become a constant companion. The captors, relentless in their pace, seem immune to fatigue. They're seasoned professionals, these raiders, and they know how to push their human cargo to the breaking point without actually losing them. There's a certain grim efficiency to it, you realize, a cold calculus of survival. You try to keep your eyes on your sister, a few people ahead of you in the line. Her shoulders are slumped, and she moves with a shuffle, but she's still there. That's all that matters. You tell yourself that, over and over like a prayer. Just keep moving. Just stay close. You look around at the other captives, a mix of young and old, men, women, and even some children. Their faces are uniformly etched with exhaustion and despair. No one speaks. There's no need. The shared silence is a language all its own, a mutual understanding of a fate too terrible to voice. One of the children, no older than 4, begins to cry. A sharp-eyed guard swoops in, pulling the child away from its mother. Your heart lurches, and you want to scream, but you bite down on your lip instead. You can't afford to draw attention to yourself. The mother, a woman who had a kind face just days ago, now looks like a stone statue, her eyes following her child until it disappears into the crowd of guards. Historians still argue whether this separation was done to break the slave's spirits, or simply because young children were often sold to different buyers and thus a burden during the journey. To you, it's just pure, unadulterated cruelty. The nights are the worst. When the sun dips below the horizon, the air turns frigid, and the guards chain you together, like a necklace of human misery. You huddle with the others, trying to steal whatever meager warmth you can. Sleep is a fleeting visitor, haunted by the memory of fire and screams. You're given a small piece of stale bread and a cup of water each day, just enough to keep you from collapsing. Your stomach cramps with hunger, a hollow, gnawing sensation. You've never truly been hungry before. Not like this. A funny, morbid thought crosses your mind. At least you don't have to worry about what to cook for dinner tonight. The simple banality of that thought is so jarring that you almost laugh, but the sound dies in your throat. It's an absurd, cruel kind of freedom. The landscape changes subtly. The familiar forests and gentle hills of your home are replaced by a more rugged, unforgiving terrain. The air begins to smell of salt, a sharp, briny scent that you've only ever heard of in stories. The raiders, who had been a constant, menacing presence, seem to become more excited, their voices louder and their movements more hurried. A quirky tidbit about this stage of the journey is that in some accounts, slave traders would deliberately use less traveled, more difficult routes to avoid being ambushed by rival groups or local authorities who might demand a share of their human cargo. The discomfort is a form of protection, you realize. Your suffering is a side effect of their business plan. As you near the coast, you start to see the evidence of a more organized operation. A makeshift camp is set up, a collection of tents and crude wooden structures. The number of guards seems to double, and their discipline is more pronounced. They are no longer just raiders. They are now part of a larger machine. You are led into a holding pen, a large enclosure where you finally have space to sit down. You collapse to the ground, your body a heap of aches and pains. You see your sister and crawl toward her, a small, desperate movement. You wrap your arms around her, holding her tightly. She leans her head on your shoulder, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, you feel a small, fragile sliver of comfort. The long march to the sea is over, but a new, terrifying chapter is just beginning. You are led into a large, bustling camp, the air thick with the combined smells of human sweat, animal dung, and the ever-present salty tang of the sea. It's a cacophony of sound, the shouts of traders, the lowing of cattle, the wailing of a child somewhere in the distance. This is your first glimpse of the slave market, and it's nothing like the tiny village fairs you remember. This place is a city unto itself, built for one purpose: the buying and selling of human beings. Crude wooden pens like the one you're in are filled with men, women, and children from all over. You see people with dark skin and people with light skin, people with straight hair and people with curly hair. A mainstream historical fact is that medieval slave markets were incredibly diverse, with slaves being sourced from all over Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. You're not just a captive, you're an addition to a global inventory. The pen you're in is already crowded, and you have to step carefully to avoid treading on someone's hand or foot. You and your sister find a small patch of ground to sit on, huddling together. From this vantage point, you can watch the market in full swing. Men in rich clothing, their faces a mix of eagerness and cold calculation, walk among the pens, prodding and inspecting the merchandise. You try to look away, but morbid curiosity wins out. You watch a group of men being led out of their pen, their bodies oiled to make their muscles glisten. They are made to run and lift heavy stones, their strength on display for potential buyers. A woman is paraded on a makeshift stage, her clothes a strange and vibrant pattern you've never seen before. A crowd gathers, shouting bids in a language you don't understand, but the meaning is clear. A quirky tidbit about these markets is that some traders would have their slaves sing songs from their homeland to demonstrate their culture and intelligence, hoping to fetch a higher price. It's a surreal image, men and women forced to perform for their freedom, or at least for a better life in servitude. You can't imagine singing right now. The thought of it feels like a betrayal of your own misery. Your throat is still tight with fear. A little while later, a guard comes to your pen and pulls out a young girl, her face pale with terror. You watch her being led away, and your sister squeezes your hand so hard it hurts. She doesn't have to say anything. You both know that your separation is coming. It's not a matter of if, but when. Historians still argue whether the family unit was ever considered in these transactions, or if it was simply a matter of profit, with no regard for human connections. You're learning that profit is the only thing that matters here. The sounds and sights of the market begin to numb your senses. The shock is replaced by a dull, persistent anxiety. You become an observer, watching the world around you with a detached eye. You notice the small details, the way the light catches a gold ring on a trader's finger, the perfect white teeth of a man who smiles a little too wide, the tired slump of a young woman's shoulders as she's led away. You start to realize that every single person here is just a piece of a giant, impersonal machine. You're no different from the cattle you saw earlier, waiting for your turn to be butchered or sold. As the day wears on, the guards bring in food, a watery stew that tastes of old vegetables and grease. You eat it without complaint, your body demanding fuel despite your mind's protest. You need to be strong, you tell yourself. You need to survive. A woman next to you, older and with deep wrinkles around her eyes, looks at you and gives a sad, knowing nod. She gestures to your sister and then to herself, and you understand her meaning. She too was separated from her family. You feel a pang of empathy for her, a small moment of connection in this sea of isolation. As the sun dips low again, the market doesn't quiet. Torches are lit, casting long, dancing shadows, and the trading continues well into the night. It seems the machine never sleeps. You close your eyes, the image of your sister a fixed point in the churning chaos. You hope that wherever she is taken, she will be safe. You have to believe it. It's the only thing that keeps you from breaking down completely. The following morning, the guards come for you. The fear you've been holding at bay, a tight knot in your stomach, suddenly springs to life, taking over your entire body. You are pulled to your feet, your sister's hand slipping from your grasp. She tries to hold on, but a guard shoves her back into the crowd. You are led away, and the last you see of her is her tear-streaked face, a silent scream frozen in her expression. The separation is brutal and swift. a clinical severing of the last tie to your old life. You are now truly alone. You're taken to a small, enclosed area behind the main market. Here, the process of turning you from a person into a product begins. Your clothes, worn and dirty from the long march, are roughly stripped from you. You're left standing naked, vulnerable and completely exposed. The cold morning air bites at your skin, and you cross your arms over your chest in a futile attempt to preserve some dignity. A grizzled man, his face a roadmap of old scars, looks you over. He inspects your teeth, pokes at your muscles, and runs a hand down your spine, checking for any deformities or weaknesses. It feels like a doctor's examination, but instead of caring for you, he's just assessing your value. A mainstream historical fact is that this physical inspection was a standard part of the slave trading process in many cultures, including medieval Europe and the Islamic world, where the health and physical condition of the slave directly impacted their market price. He gestures, and you're pushed toward a large tub of water, a murky, unpleasant-looking liquid. You are scrubbed clean with a coarse brush, the bristles scraping away the layers of dirt and grime, but also a layer of your identity. You no longer smell like the fields and the hearth of your home. You smell of cheap soap and the sea. After the bath, a brand is heated in a small fire. A quirky tidbit is that the specific location and shape of the brand could sometimes indicate the slave's origin or the trader's mark, serving as a kind of receipt or certificate of ownership. The branding iron is brought toward you, a piece of hot metal with a strange, twisting symbol at its end. You close your eyes, bracing for the inevitable pain, and then a searing agony explodes on your shoulder. The smell of burning flesh fills your nostrils, and you cry out, a sound that is lost in the din of the market. When the iron is pulled away, the pain lingers, a constant, throbbing reminder that you no longer belong to yourself. You are given a simple linen tunic to wear, a plain, shapeless garment that does little to cover you. It's an act of false modesty, you realize. They make you look presentable, but they've already taken everything from you. The branding has sealed your fate, marking you as a piece of property, and the clean clothes are just the final step in preparing you for sale. As you stand there, your shoulder still throbbing, you catch a glimpse of your reflection in a small piece of polished metal. You barely recognize the person staring back at you. The girl who once smiled and laughed is gone, replaced by a ghost with hollow eyes. You are led to another pen, where you wait with other women. They are all in the same plain tunics, all with the same new, angry red mark on their shoulders. You look at them, and you see your own reflection in their eyes, the same fear, the same despair. It's a strange kind of solidarity, a sisterhood of suffering. You don't talk, but you don't have to. You understand each other perfectly. The silence between you is a conversation of its own. Historians still argue whether these inspections and brands were purely for commercial purposes, or if they were also a psychological tool designed to strip the slaves of their identity and reinforce their status as property. You know it's both. The brand on your shoulder is not just a mark of ownership, it's a scar on your soul. It's a constant reminder that you are not a person, not anymore. You are now just a number in a trader's ledger, a valuable commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. The long, terrifying road to the auction block is almost at its end. The hours you spend in the holding pen feel like an eternity. You watch as other women are taken away, their faces a mask of numb resignation. You wait for your turn, your heart a frantic drumbeat against your ribs. The sun is high in the sky when a guard finally comes for you. He grabs your arm, the pain in your shoulder from the brand, a sharp reminder of your new reality. You are led out of the enclosure and into the heart of the market, a wide-open space dominated by a raised wooden platform. This, you realize with a sinking feeling, is the auction block. The platform is crowded with men potential buyers, you assume, and you are led up a set of rough wooden steps. You stand there, a solitary figure in the center of the stage, with a sea of faces staring up at you. It's an audience, but not for a play or a performance. They are here to appraise you, to decide your fate. The auctioneer, A stout man with a booming voice starts speaking rapidly in a language you don't understand. He points to you, gestures at your limbs, and a few men in the crowd nod in response. You feel like a piece of livestock, a horse being judged for its strength or a cow for its milk. This isn't a battle or a struggle. It's an act of pure commerce, and you are the product. A mainstream historical fact is that in many medieval slave markets, a slave's value was determined by a wide range of factors, including their age, health, physical appearance, and any perceived skills like weaving or cooking. The auctioneer is likely listing all of these things about you now, turning your life into a list of attributes and potential uses. He pulls on your arm, making you turn slowly so the crowd can get a better look. You feel a wave of humiliation wash over you, but you keep your face a blank canvas. Showing emotion, you instinctively know, is a sign of weakness. You are not a person with feelings right now. You are a thing, and things don't cry or show fear. As the bidding begins, a few men step forward for a closer look. One, a man with a neatly trimmed beard and an expensive-looking cloak, walks right up to the stage and runs his thumb along your cheekbone. It's an impersonal, assessing touch, like a potter feeling the quality of clay. You want to shrink away, to recoil from his hand, but you can't. You are frozen in place, a statue of your own design. A quirky tidbit is that in some markets, traders would place a leaf or a small charm in a female slave's hair to indicate her country of origin to a buyer. The buyers, it seems, were interested not just in your body, but in the exotic story it carried with it. You wonder if there's a leaf in your hair. You can't tell. All you can feel is the cold dread that this man might be the one to buy you. The bidding intensifies, a rapid-fire exchange of numbers and gestures. The auctioneer's voice grows louder, more excited. This is the climax of the show, the moment when your new life is decided. You try to catch the eye of someone, anyone, who looks like a decent person, but all the faces are a blur of avarice and curiosity. Historians still argue whether the buyers in these markets saw slaves as true chattel, or if there was a more complex, paternalistic view of ownership. You can't help but think it's a difference without a distinction. Whether you're a possession or a dependent, you are still not your own. You are owned. A man in the back raises his hand, his bid seemingly higher than all the others. The auctioneer's hammer comes down with a loud thud, and the crowd lets out a collective sigh. It's over. You have been sold. The man who touched your face smiles, a small, triumphant curve of his lips. He looks satisfied. A guard comes up and takes you by the arm, leading you down the steps and through the crowd. You pass by other slaves still waiting their turn, and you see the fear in their eyes. They are where you were just moments ago, and you are on a new path, a path with a new owner. You don't know who he is, where you're going, or what your life will be like now. All you know is that the auction is over, and your new life of servitude has officially begun. The new owner's grip on your arm is firm, not unkind, but entirely possessive. He leads you through the bustling market, past the crowds and the pens, toward a more private part of the camp. You stumble along behind him, your mind a jumble of questions and fears. Who is this man? Where is he taking you? What will he make you do? You steal a glance at his profile, a sharp nose, a well-kept beard, and eyes that seem to see you not as a person, but as a well-made tool. This man is a merchant, you realize, not a warrior. He is a man of commerce, and you are his latest purchase. He leads you to a small, private tent. Inside, a much older man, seated on a pile of cushions, is hunched over a ledger, counting coins. He looks up as you enter, his eyes sweeping over you with the same cold appraisal as the others. The younger merchant speaks to him in the same strange language, gesturing toward you. A bag of coins is exchanged, and the older man makes a notation in his ledger. A mainstream historical fact is that in the medieval period, the transfer of a slave was a formal transaction, often recorded in a document or ledger, much like the sale of any other valuable asset. This act of paperwork, you realize, is the final confirmation of your new status. You are a line item, a number in a book. After a few more words, the older man dismisses you with a wave of his hand. The younger merchant, your owner, leads you back outside. You now follow him toward the edge of the camp, where a caravan is being assembled. It's a bustling scene of activity. Men loading sacks onto pack animals, merchants shouting orders, and the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith working nearby. The caravan, you see, is a small city on the move, and you are now a part of it. A quirky tidbit is that merchants often traveled in large caravans for protection against bandits and to pool resources, making these journeys both a business trip and a community event of sorts, albeit a very temporary one. You're not just a slave, you're a member of a new, forced community. As you walk, your owner speaks to you for the first time. His words are harsh and clipped, but you manage to pick out a few commands. Walk, wait, and don't cause trouble are the only ones you can understand. He doesn't care if you understand the rest. He expects you to obey. You are his property, and he is your master. The thought sends a fresh wave of despair through you. You've been bought and sold, and now you're being taken away from the only place you've known. However briefly, you try to remember your sister's face, to hold on to that last tearful image, but it's already starting to fade. Your memories are becoming as blurry as the faces of the crowd at the auction. The caravan sets off, and you are led to a covered wagon, where you are ordered to sit. You share the space with a few other women, all of them silent and withdrawn. You look at them, and you see the same blank expressions, the same resignation in their eyes. They too have been bought. They too are now on this road to an unknown future. The wagon begins to move, a slow, rocking motion that lulls you into a state of semi-consciousness. The journey is long, and the landscape outside the wagon is a blur of passing fields and forests. You sleep fitfully, your dreams filled with the ghosts of your past life. Historians still argue whether the initial owner-slave relationship was more about economics or power, but for you, the two are inextricably linked. This man owns you, and with that ownership comes a power that is absolute. He can do whatever he wants with you. He can sell you again, or he can put you to work in his home, or he can give you away as a gift. Your life is no longer your own, and your future is not yours to decide. As the wagon continues its journey, you feel a profound sense of emptiness, a hollow space where your hope and your dreams used to be. You are a tool, and you have been bought by a man who is now taking you to your new life of servitude, and you can do nothing but wait and watch. The journey on the slave ship is a descent into a new kind of hell. After a long, rocking trip in the caravan, you arrive at a bustling port city. The air, already heavy with the stench of human misery, is now mixed with the pungent aroma of brine and fish. The new owner, the merchant who bought you, leads you to a large wooden ship waiting in the harbour. The ship is a massive, groaning beast, its sails furled like a sleeping creature. You can see other captives being herded onto it, their faces a mixture of terror and resignation. You are pushed up a narrow gangplank and onto the deck. The ship's crew, a rough-looking bunch of men with weathered faces, shout orders in a language you still don't understand. Below deck is a cramped, dark, and foul-smelling space. It's a literal pit of despair, with no light and little ventilation. You are led down a steep ladder and into the hold, a vast, echoing chamber filled with the low moans of the captives. The air is thick and stale, a suffocating mix of sweat, sickness, and fear. You can barely see a few feet in front of you. A mainstream historical fact is that the conditions on slave ships during the medieval period were notoriously brutal, with captives often being packed in tight spaces with little food, water, or sanitation. The journey, known as the Middle Passage in later periods, was a harrowing experience with a high mortality rate. You are now a part of this grim statistic, a human being packed like cargo. The space is so tight that you can't even sit up straight. You are forced to lie down, your body pressed against a cold, splintered wall. Your fellow captives, all women like you, are just as terrified. You can feel their bodies tremble with fear. The ship sets sail, and the journey begins. The gentle rocking of the wagon is replaced by the violent lurching of the ship as it battles the waves. You feel a wave of nausea wash over you, and your stomach cramps with a new kind of sickness. The noise is constant, the creaking of the ship's timbers, the roar of the wind, and the relentless sound of the waves crashing against the hull. At night, the darkness is absolute, and the moans of the sick and the dying are a constant soundtrack to your misery. You huddle in a small corner, your knees drawn up to your chest, and you try to find a small sliver of comfort in the sea of despair. A quirky tidbit is that some slave ships, in an effort to keep their cargo healthy, would occasionally bring the captives to the deck for fresh air and exercise. They would even have them dance to music, a grotesque and forced display of merriment. You hope that you'll be one of the lucky ones who get to go on deck, but you also dread the thought of being forced to perform. It's a choice between two kinds of indignity. Historians still argue whether this practice was a form of paternalistic care or simply a pragmatic business decision to prevent the loss of valuable property to disease. For you, the motive is irrelevant. The outcome is the same. You are still a piece of property, and you are still suffering. The days blend into one another, marked only by the meager meals of stale bread and a small cup of water. You become a master of rationing, making your small portion of bread last as long as possible. You learn to sleep despite the constant motion, and you learn to ignore the smell, the sounds, and the cold. Your body, once a source of strength and vitality, has become a vessel for pain and suffering. You are a ghost, a shell of your former self, your spirit slowly being eroded by the relentless brutality of the journey. As the days pass, you feel a growing sense of detachment. You are no longer the girl from the village, nor are you the woman from the auction block. You are now a shadow, a passenger on a ship bound for an unknown destination, and you are just trying to survive. After what feels like an eternity in the suffocating hold, the ship's motion finally slows. You can feel a change in the air, a subtle warmth, and the distinct absence of the relentless ocean spray. A few days later, you are finally brought up onto the deck. The light is blinding, and you squint against the sun, your eyes adjusting to the bright world above. The air is warm and humid, a stark contrast to the cold, damp hold you just left. You can see land, a lush, green coastline stretching out before you. The smell of exotic spices and flowers fills the air, a heady mix that feels both invigorating and strange. You've arrived at your new port, a world completely different from the one you knew. The city you see from the deck is a marvel of architecture, with white-domed buildings and tall, thin towers that pierce the sky. The port is a bustling hive of activity, with ships from all over the world, their flags a riot of colour. You are led off the ship and onto the docks, a chaotic scene of merchants shouting in new languages, sailors unloading cargo, and people in vibrant, flowing clothes. A mainstream historical fact is that major port cities in the medieval period, particularly those in the Mediterranean, were melting pots of cultures and goods, with slaves being a significant part of the trade. You are now a part of this vibrant, bustling economy, a product of a global market. Your owner, the merchant who bought you at the last market, leads you through the crowded streets. The sheer number of people is overwhelming, and you feel tiny and insignificant in the face of this new world. The smells are intoxicating sweet cakes, roasted meats, and pungent spices. The sounds are a mix of unfamiliar music, clanging bells, and the constant chatter of 100 different languages. You notice a few other women from your ship being led away by different men, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. You wonder what their fate will be, and if you'll ever see them again. A quirky tidbit is that in some port cities, slave merchants would dress their new captives in bright local clothing to help them blend in and make them more appealing to local buyers. Your plain linen tunic, however, marks you as a newcomer, a fresh piece of merchandise. The streets are narrow and winding, and you feel like you're in a labyrinth. You pass by open-air markets, where vendors sell colourful fabrics, carved wooden figures, and strange-looking fruits you've never seen before. The city is alive with energy, a stark contrast to the quiet, predictable life you once lived. Your owner seems to know exactly where he's going, and he navigates the crowded streets with practiced ease. He leads you to a large, opulent-looking building, with a beautiful courtyard and a fountain in the center. The place is a palace compared to the simple homes you're used to. You are led inside and a sense of dread begins to creep over you. The merchant doesn't live here, he's just dropping you off. He bought you to sell you again. You are taken to a small room and left alone. The silence is deafening after the constant noise of the ship and the city. You sit on the floor, your back against the cool stone wall, and you finally have a moment to think. You've been a captive, a slave, and now you're being sold again. Your life is just a series of transactions, a commodity to be moved from one person to another. Historians still argue whether this multi-sale process was a common practice or if it was more a matter of circumstance, with merchants often selling their captives to local traders instead of taking them home. You realize, though, that the reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. You have no say in your own life. You are a tool to be used, and you are about to be put on the market again. The shock of this new world is beginning to wear off, replaced by the bitter reality that you are still a prisoner, and your journey of servitude is far from over. The new slave market is a stark contrast to the one you left behind. Instead of a bustling, open-air camp, this one is housed within a beautiful, sprawling courtyard. The sound is hushed, the atmosphere more refined. There are no raucous auctioneers or shouting merchants. Instead, quiet men in flowing robes stand next to their human wares, speaking in low tones to potential buyers. The air, instead of smelling of sea and sweat, is fragrant with jasmine and cinnamon. A mainstream historical fact is that in many parts of the Islamic world, slave markets were often more sophisticated and organized, with a greater emphasis on the presentation and perceived quality of the slaves. You're no longer just a piece of meat, you are now a luxury good. You are led to a small space next to a fountain, where you are ordered to sit on a pile of soft cushions. You watch as a man, who seems to be the owner of this new establishment, looks you over with a practiced eye. He gestures to another woman who speaks the same language as you, a woman who has been here for a while. She is dressed in a vibrant silk robe, and her hair is braided with gold coins. She is a veteran of this world, you realize, and her eyes hold a deep, world-weary sadness that you can already see in your own reflection. She is a reminder that this life can go on for a long time. A quirky tidbit is that in some of these refined markets, the enslaved women would be given lessons in music, poetry, and other arts to increase their value as potential concubines or domestic servants for wealthy households. You wonder if you'll be given a lesson. The thought of it is a strange mix of hope and dread. Hope for a slightly better life, but dread for what that life might entail. Historians still argue whether this education was a form of genuine investment in the slave's well-being or simply a cynical marketing tactic. You suspect it's the latter. The woman who speaks your language comes over and sits next to you. She tells you, in a low voice, that this man is a broker. He buys and sells slaves, but he also prepares them for sale, teaching them the local customs and language. She tells you to learn as much as you can, and to try to be useful. A useful slave, she whispers, is a slave who survives. Her words are a stark reality check. Your goal is no longer just to stay alive. It's to become valuable enough to be treated with some semblance of care. A few days later, a man in a magnificent turban and a long embroidered robe comes to the courtyard. He looks at you, and you can tell he is a man of great wealth and power. He talks to the broker for a long time, and you can see him gesturing at you. The conversation is punctuated by bursts of laughter and polite nods. He seems to be a discerning buyer, and he wants to know your story. The broker, a master of his craft, probably invents a story for you, making you sound more exotic and interesting than you are. You are no longer just a captured girl from a small village. You are now a character in a merchant's tale. The man in the turban buys you. The transaction is swift and quiet, a simple exchange of coins and a piece of paper. He smiles at you, a polite and kind smile that doesn't reach his eyes. His touch is light and respectful as he takes your arm, but it is still the touch of an owner. He leads you out of the courtyard and into the streets. You are a commodity that has been sold again, but this time, the process was different. This time it was a transaction of grace and quiet dignity, a transaction that was no less brutal for its lack of noise. You're no longer in a place of open-air suffering. You are now in a place of refined, elegant cruelty. Your life is a story being written for you by men you've never met, and you're about to find out what the next chapter holds. The journey from the elegant, hushed market to your new home is short, but it's another world. You are taken through the winding streets, past the noisy bazaars and fragrant food stalls, until you reach a large, imposing wooden gate. It's an anonymous-looking gate, but it's a door to your new life. You are led inside to a beautiful courtyard with a fountain at its center, surrounded by lush gardens. The air is filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the gentle sound of running water. It's a place of quiet beauty and opulence, and you feel entirely out of place. You are led into a large, well-lit room, where you are introduced to the master of the house, the man who bought you. He gestures to a woman who stands in the corner of the room, an older woman with a severe face and a sharp, assessing gaze. She is the housekeeper, you realize, the person who will be your immediate master. Her eyes sweep over you, taking in your simple tunic and the brand on your shoulder. She says something to you in the local tongue, her voice sharp and authoritative. You don't understand, but her meaning is clear. You are to follow her and do what she says. A mainstream historical fact is that in many wealthy households, the management of domestic slaves was often left to a chief housekeeper or overseer, who was herself a slave or a freed woman. This person held a great deal of power and could be a source of both protection and cruelty. You know that you must not displease her. You are led to a small, humble room in the servants' quarters. It is clean and sparse, with a simple straw mat for a bed and a small basin for washing. The housekeeper points to a pile of rough spun clothes and gestures for you to put them on. You realize that your time in the plain linen tunic is over. You are now a domestic servant, and you will dress the part. You change into the clothes, which are coarse but clean. The housekeeper returns with a small bowl of porridge and a cup of water, your first meal in your new home. You eat it in silence, the taste of the warm porridge a comfort to your weary soul. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, new slaves were given a new name, often one that was short and easy to remember, to further erase their old identity and reinforce their new status as property. The housekeeper does not give you a new name, but you know that she will not call you by your old one. You are a nameless servant, a face in a sea of other faces. You are a tool to be used, and your name is not important. You are simply the new one. You are just a body, a pair of hands to be put to work. The next few days are a blur of learning. The housekeeper, using a combination of hand gestures and simple words, teaches you the routine of the household. You learn to sweep the floors with a broom made of stiff straw, to clean the elegant carved furniture, and to fetch water from the well in the courtyard. You learn to be invisible, to move through the house without being seen or heard. You learn to listen for the sound of a bell, a command that will summon you to your master's side. Historians still argue whether this process of assimilation was a form of education or a form of psychological conditioning. You realize it is both. You are being trained to be a perfect servant, a ghost in the machine of this grand house. You meet the other domestic slaves, a small community of women who work together in a silent rhythm. They are a mix of ages and backgrounds, and they all have the same quiet, world-weary look in their eyes. They teach you the unspoken rules of the house, which rooms to avoid, which tasks to do with care, and which people to stay away from. They are not unkind, but they are wary. They have all been here for a long time, and they know the dangers of the house. You learn that your new life is not a life of freedom, but a life of rules and servitude. You are a domestic slave now, and this house is your new prison. The work in the household is relentless, a never-ending cycle of sweeping, scrubbing, and carrying. But you are not just a tool for cleaning, you are also a tool for childcare. One morning, the housekeeper takes you to a different part of the house, a large room filled with toys and brightly colored blankets. A young boy, no older than 2, is playing on the floor. He looks at you with wide, curious eyes. The housekeeper gestures to him, then to you, and then to a cradle in the corner of the room. The meaning is clear. You are now a wet nurse. Your body, which has been through so much, is now being put to a new, unexpected use. The boy is the son of the master, and he needs to be fed. You are a source of sustenance for him, a warm body that can provide comfort and food. A mainstream historical fact is that wet nursing was a common practice among the wealthy in many cultures, as it allowed noble women to have more children in a shorter period of time. You are now a part of this system, a living tool for the master's family line. The boy is not your child, but your body doesn't know that. When you hold him, when you feed him, a strange maternal instinct takes over. You feel a pang of love for this child, a feeling that is both comforting and terrifying. The boy, whose name is Tariq, is a sweet and gentle child. He smiles at you, his small hand gripping your finger, and you can't help but smile back. You spend your days with him, playing with his toys and rocking him to sleep. You sing him lullabies from your homeland, the simple songs of your childhood, a bittersweet memory. You are a mother to a child who is not your own, and the emotional toll is immense. You love this boy, but you know he is not yours. He is a part of the master's household, and you are just a temporary fixture in his life. You know that one day he will grow up, and you will be replaced. A quirky tidbit is that in some cultures, the children of wet nurses and the children they nursed were considered milk siblings, and this could sometimes lead to a lifelong bond, though this was rare. For you, it's a distant hope, a wish that you and Tariq might one day have a connection that goes beyond your current servitude. Historians still argue whether wet nurses were respected or simply exploited for their bodies. You can see both sides of the coin. You are treated with a certain level of care and respect because you are essential to the well-being of the master's child. You are given more food, you are allowed to rest more, and you are treated less harshly than the other domestic slaves. But you are also a body, a tool. Your breasts are a resource, and your body is a means to an end. You are a mother without a child, and a servant without a choice. Your days are now defined by Tariq's schedule. You wake up when he wakes up, you eat when he eats, and you sleep when he sleeps. You are a part of his life, but you are not a part of his family. You watch as his mother, a beautiful, aloof woman, comes into the room to play with him for a few minutes before leaving again. She smiles at you politely, but her eyes are cold. You are just the help, the woman who keeps her child safe and fed. You are a ghost, a shadow in the corner of the room, and you are slowly fading away. You try to hold on to the last vestiges of your old self, to the memories of your home and your sister. But Tariq's small hand in yours, his gentle breathing against your chest, is a constant reminder of your new life, a life of servitude, a life of love and loss. You are no longer just a wet nurse. You are also a concubine. The shift from one role to the next is a gradual, insidious one. The master, the man who owns this house and the people in it, begins to pay more attention to you. He doesn't look at you with the cold, appraising eyes of a trader anymore. He looks at you with a different kind of hunger, one that is more personal and more terrifying. You are still a piece of property, but now you are a piece of property with a special, intimate value. You are summoned to his private quarters one evening, a luxurious room with plush carpets and a soft scented glow from oil lamps. You are no longer wearing the coarse clothes of a domestic servant. You are dressed in fine silk robes, and your hair has been washed and scented with exotic oils. The master is kind, in a way. He speaks to you gently, and he doesn't force you to do anything you don't want to do. But you know that the kindness is a gilded cage. You have no power, no choice. You are a concubine, a woman who lives to serve her master's pleasure. A mainstream historical fact is that concubinage was a common practice in many medieval societies, especially among the wealthy. Concubines were often slaves, and their status, while sometimes elevated above that of other servants, was still precarious and dependent on the whims of their master. You learn the unspoken rules of this new role. You are to be beautiful, you are to be quiet, and you are to be always available. You are not a wife, and you have no legal rights. You are not a domestic servant, but you are still a slave. You are in a strange liminal space, a grey area between freedom and servitude. You are given better food, you are dressed in finer clothes, and you are treated with a certain deference by the other servants. But you know that this status is a fragile thing. It can be taken away from you at any moment. A quirky tidbit is that in some cultures, a concubine could gain her freedom if she bore her master a child. This child, if recognized by the father, could also be a source of power and influence for the mother. You wonder if this is an option for you, a way to gain some control over your life. The master's wife, a stern and jealous woman, is a constant reminder of your precarious position. She looks at you with cold, calculating eyes, a mix of contempt and fear. You know that she sees you as a threat, a rival for her husband's affection and attention. You are careful to stay out of her way, to never speak to her, and to never meet her gaze. She is a powerful woman, and her anger could be a death sentence for you. Historians still argue whether concubines were seen as a threat to the established family unit or a necessary part of a household's social structure. You, however, know that you are a threat. You are a living reminder of your master's power and his wife's lack of it. Your life is a paradox of luxury and imprisonment. You have beautiful clothes and fine food, but you are still a prisoner in a cage of your own design. You have a position of power, but it is a power that is entirely dependent on the whims of your master. You are a concubine, a slave with a beautiful name and a fragile existence. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, and now you are a woman who is loved, but not free. You live in a world of opulence and fear, and you are a ghost in the machine, a beautiful but silent presence in a house that is not your own. You realize that your life is a story being written for you by men you've never met, and you are just a character in their play. The life of a concubine is a dangerous dance, and you are learning the steps quickly. You live in a world of silent signals and veiled threats. You are a special kind of property, a slave who lives in luxury, but you are still a slave. Your time is no longer your own. Your days are dictated by the master's whims and the unspoken rules of his household. The other domestic slaves, the ones who once looked at you with a kind of weary empathy, now look at you with a mix of resentment and pity. They see the fine clothes, the extra food, and the lack of back-breaking labor, but they also see the price you pay for it. They see the cold glint in the master's wife's eyes, and they know that your position is a fragile one. You spend your days in a beautiful room, a chamber filled with soft cushions and elegant tapestries. You are given a lute, a stringed instrument that you learn to play. Your fingers, once calloused from hard labor, are now soft and nimble. The music is a strange comfort, a way to escape from your own thoughts, a way to fill the long, empty hours. A mainstream historical fact is that in many wealthy households, concubines were often trained in music, poetry, and dance, as these skills were seen as a way to entertain the master and elevate the status of the concubine. You are a walking, breathing piece of art, a living ornament in the master's house. You are also a repository of secrets. The master talks to you, confides in you, tells you things he would never tell his wife or his children. He tells you about his business deals, his rivals, his fears, and his desires. You are a silent confidant, a sounding board for his thoughts. You listen, you nod, and you offer no advice. You are a tool, and you are being used for your ears and your silence. You realize that your value to him is not just your body, it's also your discretion. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, concubines were used as spies, gathering information on their master's rivals, or even their own family members. Your position, you realize, is a dangerous one. You have access to information that could be used to harm others, and you are also in a position where you could be harmed if you reveal a secret. Historians still argue whether this type of relationship was a form of trust or a form of exploitation. You, however, know that it's both. The master trusts you because you are a slave, and you have no power to betray him. He trusts you because you have no one to talk to, no one to share his secrets with. He trusts you because he knows that if you were to reveal a secret, the consequences for you would be dire. The trust, you realize, is just another kind of cage, another way for him to control you. The nights are the most difficult. You are summoned to the master's bedchamber, a room that is both a place of luxury and a place of fear. You are a beautiful object to be used and discarded, a source of pleasure and comfort for the master. You learn to detach yourself from your body, to become a ghost in your own skin. You learn to pretend, to feign pleasure, to act out the part of a willing lover. You are an actress, a performer in a play you never auditioned for. The master is not unkind. He is gentle, and he is often respectful. But you know that the gentleness is just a part of the performance. You are still a slave, and you are still his property. You remember the woman at the market, the one who told you to be useful. You are now useful in a way you never imagined. You are a concubine, a silent confidant, a performer, and a possession. You are a woman who lives in a beautiful, gilded cage, and you are a ghost in your own life. You are a story being told, and you are not the one telling it. You are a beautiful, broken thing, and you are just trying to survive. You are no longer a concubine in the master's grand house. The gentle rhythm of that gilded cage is now a distant memory. A new owner, a man from a foreign land, has purchased you. He is a man of the earth, not a man of luxury. His hands are calloused, and his face is weathered by sun and wind. He is a farmer, a man who owns a vast tract of land and a community of slaves who work it. You are now a part of this community, a worker in the fields. The journey to his land is long and arduous, a painful reminder of the first march. You are once again a slave in the most brutal sense of the word. The sun beats down on your back, a relentless hammer of heat. The work is back-breaking and exhausting. You spend your days bent over, your hands digging into the dry, unforgiving soil. You plant seeds, you pull weeds, you harvest crops, and you carry heavy sacks of grain on your shoulders. The work is never-ending, and your body, once soft from the pampered life of a concubine, quickly hardens and strengthens. Your hands, once nimble and soft from playing the lute, are now a roadmap of blisters and calluses. The silk robes are gone, replaced by a simple, coarse tunic. The scented oils and perfumes are replaced by the smell of sweat and dirt. You are a tool, a pair of hands to be put to work. A mainstream historical fact is that agricultural slavery was a cornerstone of many medieval economies, with slaves performing the most grueling labor in the fields. The lives of these slaves were often short and brutal, a constant struggle against exhaustion, hunger, and disease. You are now a part of this system, a cog in a giant machine. The farmer is a fair man in a way. He provides you with enough food to survive, and he doesn't beat you without reason. But he is still a master, and you are still a slave. He sees you not as a person, but as a unit of labor, a body that can produce a certain amount of work per day. Your value is measured not in your beauty or your discretion, but in your physical strength. A quirky tidbit is that in some agricultural communities, slaves were given small plots of land to cultivate for themselves, a practice that was meant to incentivize them to work harder. You are not given a plot of land, but you hear whispers of this practice from the other slaves. It's a distant hope, a rumor of a better life, but it's a hope nonetheless. You and the other slaves, a diverse group of men and women from all over the world, work together in a silent rhythm. You don't talk much, but you understand each other. The shared suffering is a language of its own. Historians still argue whether agricultural slavery was more or less brutal than domestic slavery. You have experienced both, and you know that they are just different kinds of prisons. In the master's house, you were a beautiful ornament in a gilded cage. Here, you are a beast of burden in an open field. The physical pain is immense, but the psychological pain is different. You are no longer a source of secrets or a symbol of power. You are just a body, a tool to be used and discarded. The life of a field slave is one of utter anonymity. You are a face in a crowd, a body in a field, and you are slowly fading away. You try to hold on to the last vestiges of your old self, to the memories of your home and your sister, but the sun beats them out of you, one memory at a time. The work is endless, and the only escape is sleep, a restless, dream-filled sleep that is a welcome reprieve from the pain. You are a field slave now, and you are just trying to survive. The fields are a brutal, endless cycle of labor, but you are a survivor. Your body, once a source of beauty and pleasure, is now a source of strength and endurance. But your master, the farmer, is a pragmatic man. He sees your value not just as a field hand, but as a potential asset in a different kind of labor. One day, you and a few other women are pulled from the fields and taken to a large, long building on the edge of the farm. This is the textile workshop, a place of loud, rhythmic noise and bustling activity. The air inside is thick with the smell of wool and dye, a pungent, earthy scent that clings to your clothes and skin. The room is filled with dozens of women, all working in a synchronized rhythm, their hands moving with a practiced speed that you find both mesmerizing and intimidating. A mainstream historical fact is that textile production was a major industry in the medieval period, and workshops often relied on enslaved women for labor. These workshops were often a microcosm of the society outside, with a strict hierarchy and a complex web of relationships. You are now a part of this world, a new cog in a new machine. The work is different from the fields, but no less demanding. You are given a large spindle and taught to spin wool into thread. The work is repetitive and monotonous, but it's a skill you learn quickly. Your fingers, once calloused from the fields, now ache from the constant twisting motion of the spindle. The sound of the looms, a relentless clanking rhythm, is a constant presence, a soundtrack to your new life. You are a ghost, a silent presence in a sea of other silent women. You don't talk much, but you listen. You hear the whispers of gossip, the rumors of the master's moods, and the hushed conversations about the lives of the women who have been here for a long time. A quirky tidbit is that in some of these workshops, the enslaved women would develop their own secret language, a mix of gestures and coded words that would allow them to communicate without the overseer knowing. You realize that this is a way to survive, a way to maintain a small sliver of dignity and autonomy in a world where you have none. You learn the gestures and the words, and you become a part of this secret society, a silent and knowing member of a community of suffering. You watch as the other women, with practiced hands, weave the threads into beautiful tapestries and rugs. They are true artisans, masters of their craft. You are still a beginner, but you are learning. You are a part of a production line, a worker who is slowly learning a trade. Historians still argue whether this type of work was seen as a privilege or a punishment. For you, it's both. The work is easier on your body than the fields, but the psychological toll of the monotonous labor is immense. The work is a form of prison, but the skill you are learning is a small, fragile sliver of hope. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and a concubine. Now, you are a textile worker, a silent and anonymous member of a community of women who are all just trying to survive. The work is hard, the hours are long, and the future is uncertain, but you are a survivor. You are learning a new skill, and you are learning a new language. You are a part of a community, and you are no longer alone. The workshop is a prison, but it's a prison with a small window of hope, and you are holding onto it with all your might. The textile workshop is a world of constant motion and sound, but it's a world you've come to understand. The rhythmic clatter of the looms, the whirring of the spinning wheels, the low murmur of conversations, it's a chaotic symphony that has become your new normal. You are no longer just a spinner, you are a weaver. The overseer, a stern woman with a keen eye for detail, has noticed your deft hands and your quick learning. She has promoted you to a loom, and you now spend your days weaving intricate patterns into large bolts of cloth. The work is physically demanding, but it's also a craft, an art form. You are now a skilled artisan, a woman who can turn a pile of raw wool into a beautiful tapestry. A mainstream historical fact is that skilled slaves, particularly artisans, were highly valued in medieval society. Their skills were often a source of great wealth for their masters, and they were often treated with more care and respect than field slaves or domestic servants. You are no longer a commodity, you are an asset. Your skills have given you a new kind of value, a value that is not based on your physical strength or your beauty, but on your talent and your ability to create. The other women in the workshop, the ones who were once just silent presences, are now your colleagues, your friends. You talk to them while you work, sharing stories and secrets. Your voice is a quiet counterpoint to the noise of the looms. You learn about their lives, their homes, and their families. You learn about a woman named Fatima, who was a weaver in her homeland before she was captured. She teaches you the secrets of the loom, the small, almost magical tricks that turn a simple pattern into a work of art. She tells you about her children, and you tell her about your sister. The shared memories are a source of comfort, a small sliver of humanity in a world that is so often inhumane. A quirky tidbit is that in some workshops, the enslaved artisans would secretly weave coded messages or symbols into their work, a subtle form of resistance or a way to communicate with each other. You look at the patterns in your cloth, the intricate twists and turns of the threads, and you wonder if there's a hidden message in your own work. You wonder if the people who buy this cloth, the wealthy merchants and noblemen, will ever know the story of the women who wove it. Historians still argue whether this practice was a widespread form of rebellion or simply a romanticized notion. You, however, know that the desire to resist, to maintain some semblance of your own identity, is a powerful one. Your work is a form of escape, a way to lose yourself in the rhythm of the loom and the beauty of the patterns. You are no longer just a slave, you are an artist. You have a skill, a talent, and a purpose. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a concubine and a field hand, but you are also a weaver, a creator, a woman who can make something beautiful out of a pile of raw materials. The workshop is still a prison, and you are still a slave, but you are a slave with a skill, and that skill has given you a new kind of power, a power that is not dependent on your master's whims, but on your own two hands. You are no longer a face in a crowd. You are a woman with a name, a woman with a story, a woman with a purpose. The workshop is a place of endless work and constant noise, but it's also a place of community, of shared suffering and shared hope. The loom is your canvas, and the threads are your words. You are weaving your own story, a story of a woman who has survived, a story of a woman who has learned to create beauty in the midst of ugliness. You are an artisan, and you are just trying to survive. Your skill as a weaver, a quiet and steadfast talent, doesn't go unnoticed. The master of the house, the farmer who owns the workshop and the fields, sees your potential as more than just a source of labor. He sees your ability to create, to follow complex instructions, and to manage your work with a level of dedication that is rare. One day, you are summoned from the workshop, your hands still smelling of lanolin and dye, and you are led into the main house. The air is warm and clean, a stark contrast to the dusty, pungent workshop. You are brought to the master's wife, a woman whose face you barely remember from your brief stint as a concubine, but whose cold, assessing eyes you will never forget. She looks at you, not with the contempt you remember, but with a new kind of curiosity. She asks you questions about your work, your skills, and your ability to manage your time. You answer her in a mix of the local language and hand gestures, your words careful and respectful. She nods, a slow, deliberate movement, and then she tells you your new job. You are to be her personal attendant, a woman who will serve her directly, helping her with her daily routine and her personal needs. You are no longer a field hand or a workshop artisan. You are now a courtier of sorts, a woman who lives in the shadow of a powerful lady. A mainstream historical fact is that in many wealthy medieval households, the lady of the house often had a retinue of female slaves who served as personal attendants, confidants, and sources of information. These women were often highly valued for their loyalty and discretion. You are now a part of this system, a woman who is trusted with the secrets and the personal life of the master's wife. This is not a position of power, but it is a position of influence. You are no longer just a body to be used. You are now a mind to be trusted. Your new life is a world of silent signals and unspoken rules. You learn to read the lady's moods by the set of her jaw or the way she holds her hands. You learn to anticipate her needs before she even speaks them. You dress her in the mornings, lacing her corsets and pinning her veils, your hands moving with a new kind of practiced grace. You fetch her water for her bath, and you brush her long, dark hair. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, these personal attendants would become so close to their mistresses that they would share a bed with them, a practice that was meant to show a deep level of trust and intimacy. You don't share a bed with the lady, but you are always there, a silent presence in her life. Historians still argue whether this type of relationship was a form of genuine affection or a form of forced intimacy. You, however, know that it's a mix of both. The lady is not unkind to you. She speaks to you with a certain familiarity, and she often confides in you about her own fears and her own struggles. She tells you about the master's long absences, about her worries for her children, and about her frustrations with her position in the household. You are her sounding board, her silent confessor, but you are also still a slave. You are a tool to be used, a mind to be trusted, and a body to be controlled. The relationship is a strange paradox of intimacy and distance, of trust and control. You realize that this new life is a different kind of prison. The workshop was a prison of hard labor, and the concubine's bedchamber was a prison of emotional manipulation. This is a prison of proximity. You are so close to the power, so close to the secrets, but you are still a slave. You are a woman who lives in the shadow of a powerful lady, and you are a ghost in her life. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. Now, you are a personal attendant, and you are just trying to survive. You are no longer just an attendant. You are a ghost, a shadow that moves through the house, seeing everything and saying nothing. Your proximity to the master's wife, a woman of great influence and power, has given you access to a world you never knew existed. You are now a part of the household's political landscape, a silent observer in a world of gossip, secrets, and veiled threats. You learn to listen with a different kind of ear, to hear the things that are not said, to see the things that are not shown. You learn that the master's wife, a woman who seems so powerful and in control, is a prisoner in her own right. She is a woman of influence, but her influence is entirely dependent on the master's position and wealth. She is jealous of the master's other mistresses, and she is terrified of being replaced. You are a silent confidant, a woman who listens to her fears and her insecurities. You learn that her cruel, dismissive attitude is a shield, a way to protect herself from a world that is so often cruel and dismissive to women. A mainstream historical fact is that in many medieval societies, women, even those of noble birth, often had limited legal and social power. Their status was almost entirely dependent on their husbands or fathers. They were often used as pawns in political marriages, and their primary role was to produce heirs. You are a living reminder of this system, a woman who has no power, and a woman who serves a woman who has very little power herself. The irony is not lost on you. You learn to use the information you gather. You hear a rumor about a rival merchant, a man who is trying to undermine the master's business. You don't say anything, but you make sure the lady knows. You find a small, coded message in a letter from her sister, a message that suggests a political intrigue. You don't say anything, but you make sure the lady knows. You are a repository of secrets, and you are learning to use them to your advantage. Your survival, you realize, is now dependent on your ability to be a source of valuable information. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, female slaves were given lessons in reading and writing so they could act as secret scribes. reading and writing letters for their masters or mistresses. You are not a scribe, but you are a spy. You are a silent agent in a world of intrigue. Historians still argue whether this type of espionage was a widespread practice or a romanticized notion. You, however, know that the desire to survive, to gain some small measure of control in a world where you have none, is a powerful one. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. Now, you are a personal attendant, and you are learning to navigate the treacherous waters of courtly politics. You are a ghost, a shadow in the corner of a room, but you are a ghost with a purpose. You are a woman who is learning to survive in a world that is designed to break you. The knowledge you gather is a weapon, and you are learning to use it with a kind of quiet grace. You are no longer a victim. You are a survivor. The gossip and the secrets are a new kind of currency, and you are slowly but surely building a small, personal fortune of information. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The house is a prison, but it's a prison with a small window of power, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The house, once a place of distant luxury, has become your entire world. You no longer move through it with the hurried, anonymous steps of a domestic servant. Now, you glide. You know every hidden passage, every secret nook, and every creaking floorboard. You are a ghost, a silent presence that is everywhere and nowhere at once. You are a house slave, a special kind of property that exists in a strange, liminal space between the family and the other servants. You are close to power, but you have none of your own. You are the lady's shadow, her constant companion. You are with her when she wakes, and you are the last person to see her before she sleeps. You dress her, you brush her hair, and you listen to her endless worries. She confides in you about her husband's infidelities, her children's failures, and her own profound loneliness. You are a silent confidant, a sounding board for her fears and her insecurities. You learn that her cruel, dismissive attitude is a shield, a way to protect herself from a world that is so often cruel and dismissive to women. A mainstream historical fact is that in many wealthy households, the relationship between a mistress and her personal slave could be incredibly complex, often a mix of genuine affection and profound power imbalance. The mistress might rely on the slave for emotional support, but she would still have complete control over the slave's life. You are a living example of this paradox. The lady treats you with a kind of familiarity, but she never forgets that you are a slave. Her kindness, you realize, is a gilded cage. It is a way for her to feel like a kind and compassionate person, while still holding you in a position of complete subservience. You learn to read the house like a book. You know when the master is in a bad mood by the way the doors are slammed. You know when a guest is important by the way the lady holds her head. You know the secrets of every single person who lives in this house, from the servants to the master himself. You know that the cook is stealing food, that the gardener is having an affair with a maid, and that the master has a secret stash of letters from a rival merchant. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, these enslaved women were given their own keys and were trusted with running the household in the lady's absence, a position of great responsibility that came with no power or freedom. You don't have a key, but you have access. You are a silent observer, a repository of secrets, and a ghost in the machine. Historians still argue whether this type of intimacy between a mistress and her slave was a form of mutual companionship or a form of forced emotional labor. You, however, know that it's a mix of both. You are forced to be intimate, to listen and to care, but you are not a friend. You are a tool, and you are being used for your emotional labor. The lady needs someone to confide in, and you are the only one who can't betray her. Your silence, you realize, is your greatest asset. It is a source of power, a power that is entirely dependent on your ability to be a good listener and a good secret keeper. Your life is a paradox of proximity and distance, of intimacy and control. You are so close to the power, so close to the secrets, but you are still a slave. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. Now, you are a house slave, a silent presence in a world of intrigue. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The house is a prison, but it's a prison with a small window of power, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The house is a complex machine, and you are a ghost in its gears. You have learned to be invisible, to move through the shadows, and to listen to the silent hum of its rhythm. But you are not alone. There is a small, quiet community of other slaves who work in the house with you. They are the kitchen maids, the stable boys, the gardeners, and the other personal attendants. You are a community of shared suffering, and you are learning to find strength in each other. You learn to communicate with them through a network of silent signals and knowing glances. You learn to read their faces, to see the subtle signs of their moods. A small smile, a quick nod, a lowered gaze. These are your words. You are a community of silent conspirators, a group of people who are all just trying to survive in a world that is designed to break them. You learn to help each other, to share a small piece of bread, a scrap of cloth, a few whispered words of comfort. You are a family of sorts, a family that has been forged in the fire of shared pain. A mainstream historical fact is that in many large households, enslaved people would form their own communities and social structures, creating a support system that helped them cope with the brutality of their lives. These communities were often a source of strength, a way to maintain their humanity in a world that saw them as property. You are now a part of this community, a woman who is no longer alone. The other slaves are a source of comfort, a reminder that you are not the only one who is suffering. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, the enslaved people would have their own secret rituals and traditions, a way to maintain their cultural identity in a world that was trying to erase it. You are a part of these rituals. You and the other women gather in a small, hidden room in the evenings, and you share stories from your homelands. You sing songs from your childhoods, and you tell tales of the heroes and the gods of your people. It's a small act of rebellion, a way to keep your culture alive, a way to remember who you are. Historians still argue whether this type of community building was a form of passive resistance or a simple act of survival. You, however, know that it is both. It is a way to resist the master's attempts to erase your identity, and it is a way to survive the brutality of your life. The community is a source of strength, a reminder that you are not just a tool to be used, but a person with a history, a culture, and a soul. Your life is a paradox of loneliness and community. You are a ghost, a silent presence in a world of intrigue, but you are also a member of a community of silent conspirators. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. Now, you are a house slave, a silent presence in a world of intrigue, but you are also a member of a family of sorts, a family that has been forged in the fire of shared pain. The house is a prison, but it's a prison with a small window of community, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The other slaves are a source of comfort, a reminder that you are not alone, and you are grateful for their presence in your life. The house, with its intricate dance of secrets and power, is a world you are learning to navigate, but it's a world without a future. You are a slave, and the idea of freedom is a distant, shimmering mirage. But a new idea, a new kind of hope, begins to take root in your mind. You begin to hear whispers about manumission, the process of a slave gaining their freedom. It's not a common practice, and it's a difficult one, but it's a possibility, a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. You hear stories of other slaves who have been freed. Some were freed for their loyalty and service to the master. Others were freed in the master's will, a final act of kindness. Still others were able to buy their freedom, a long and arduous process of saving up enough money to pay their master for their own life. A mainstream historical fact is that manumission was a legal process in many medieval societies, and it was a way for a master to reward a loyal slave or to gain social status by freeing a person. For you, it's not a legal process. It's a dream. The dream of freedom begins to consume you. You start to listen to the conversations of the other slaves with a new kind of ear. You hear them talking about the different ways to save money, the different ways to earn a few extra coins. You learn about a small, underground economy among the slaves, a system of bartering and trading that exists in the shadows of the master's house. You learn about a woman who makes beautiful embroidered handkerchiefs in her spare time, and she sells them to the other slaves for a few coins. You learn about a man who carves small wooden figures, and he sells them to the local merchants for a small profit. You realize that your skill as a weaver, a skill you learned in the textile workshop, could be a source of income. You begin to save every scrap of cloth, every stray piece of thread. You work in the shadows, in the quiet hours after everyone has gone to sleep, and you weave small, intricate patterns into pieces of cloth. You make small, beautiful tapestries that you sell to the other slaves for a few coins. It's a slow, painstaking process, but every coin you earn is a step toward freedom. A quirky tidbit is that in some households, enslaved women were allowed to keep a portion of the money they earned from their side work, a practice that was meant to incentivize them to work harder. You are not given a portion of your earnings, but you are a woman who is learning to steal a small portion of her own life. Historians still argue whether this type of self-emancipation was a widespread practice or a romanticized notion. You, however, know that the desire to be free, to be your own person, is a powerful one. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. Now, you are a house slave, a silent presence in a world of intrigue, but you are also a woman who is slowly, subtly, buying her own life back. The house is a prison, but it's a prison with a small window of hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. The dream of manumission is a fragile thing, a delicate flower that could be crushed at any moment. You know that if the master were to find out about your secret work, the consequences would be dire. But you are a woman who has lost everything, and you are a woman who has learned to risk everything for a chance at a new life. You are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The coins you earn are not just coins. They are a currency of hope, a tangible sign that your future is not entirely out of your hands. The dream of freedom is a powerful motivator, a constant hum beneath the surface of your life. But you are a woman who is learning that dreams are fragile things, and the path to freedom is fraught with danger. You and a few other slaves, women who have also been saving their coins and dreaming of a new life, decide to attempt an escape. It's a risky plan, a desperate gamble, but you are all so tired of being owned. You have a small stash of coins, a rough map of the surrounding area, and a deep, burning desire to be free. The night is dark and moonless, a perfect cover for your escape. You and the other women slip out of the servants' quarters, your feet silent on the cobblestones. The plan is simple. Get to the edge of the property, follow the river downstream, and then make your way to a nearby town where you can hopefully find work and a new life. The air is cool and crisp, and the adrenaline is a sharp, electric current running through your veins. You are a woman who is no longer a slave, at least not for this one beautiful moment. But the plan goes wrong. The dog, a large, vicious beast that guards the property, starts to bark. The barking is a loud, jarring sound that shatters the silence of the night. A guard, a man who you've seen 100 times before, comes out of the guardhouse. He sees you, and he shouts, his voice a guttural roar in the darkness. You and the other women start to run, your feet pounding on the dirt path, your hearts a frantic drumbeat against your ribs. A mainstream historical fact is that escape attempts by slaves were common, but the success rate was often low, with the punishment for a failed attempt being brutal and severe. You are a woman who is learning this the hard way. You are caught. The guards are too fast, too well armed, and too numerous. They surround you, their faces grim and their eyes cold. The adrenaline that had been fueling you a moment ago is now replaced by a cold, numbing fear. You are a woman who has been caught, a woman who has failed, a woman who is about to be punished. The punishment is swift and brutal. You are brought back to the house, and you are whipped in front of the other slaves, a public display of power and control. The pain is a sharp, searing fire on your back, and you bite down on your lip to keep from screaming. You will not give them the satisfaction of your tears. A quirky tidbit is that in some cultures, a master would brand a failed runaway slave on the face, a permanent mark of their status and their crime. You are lucky. You are not branded on the face. You are branded on the back, a painful but hidden reminder of your failed attempt. The brand is a symbol of your failure, a constant, throbbing reminder that you are still a slave. Historians still argue whether this type of punishment was meant to be a deterrent for other slaves, or a way to assert the master's power. You, however, know that it is both. It is a way to remind you, and every other slave, that you are not in control of your own life, and that your life is not your own. The failed escape attempt is a blow to your spirit, a crushing reminder of your powerlessness. But you are a survivor. You are a woman who has been whipped, branded, and humiliated, but you are still alive. The dream of freedom, once a beautiful, shimmering mirage, is now a distant memory. But you are a woman who has learned to be patient, a woman who has learned to wait, a woman who has learned to hope in the face of despair. The path to freedom is not through a desperate escape. It is through a long, slow, and careful process of saving and waiting. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is still a master of your own destiny, and you will not give up. The sting of the whip and the burn of the brand are now a part of your past, a painful memory that you carry with you every day. But the failed escape attempt, as brutal as it was, has taught you a valuable lesson. The path to freedom is not through a desperate run in the night. It is through a long, slow, and careful process of saving and waiting. You are a woman who has been broken and humiliated, but you are also a woman who has learned to be patient, a woman who has learned to wait, a woman who has learned to hope in the face of despair. The master, a pragmatic man, sees that you are a resilient woman, a woman who will not be broken. He sees that you are a woman of worth, a woman who can be useful. In a strange, unexpected turn of events, he grants you your manumission. It's not a complete freedom, but it's a step in the right direction. He gives you a small piece of paper, a document that declares you a freed woman. A mainstream historical fact is that in some cultures, a freed slave was not a free person in the truest sense of the word. They often owed a debt of loyalty or service to their former master, and they were often at the bottom of the social hierarchy. You are now a freed woman, but you are still a prisoner of your past. You are no longer a slave, but you are not truly free. You are a woman who has been cut loose from her master, but you are a woman who has no home, no family, and no money. You are a woman who is now a part of the outside world, a world that is just as cruel and unforgiving as the master's house. You are a woman who is now alone, and the loneliness is a heavy, crushing weight. The other slaves, the women who were once your family, now look at you with a mix of envy and pity. They see your freedom, but they also see your profound loneliness. A quirky tidbit is that in some cultures, freed slaves would often take their former master's name as a sign of their new status, a way to show that they were a part of a new, powerful family. You don't take the master's name. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who is still holding on to the last vestiges of her old identity. You are a woman who is now a ghost, a shadow in a world of free people. You are a woman who is no longer a slave, but you are not yet a person. You are in a liminal space, a grey area between freedom and servitude. Historians still argue whether this type of partial freedom was a form of genuine benevolence or a cynical way to get rid of an old, no longer useful slave. You, however, know that the reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. You have a piece of paper that says you are free, but you are a woman who is still a prisoner. The master has given you your freedom, but he has not given you a life. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is still a prisoner of her past. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The manumission paper is a small, fragile piece of hope, a tangible sign that your future is not entirely out of your hands. You are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The world outside the master's house is a terrifying place, but it's a place where you can finally start to build a new life for yourself. You are no longer a slave, but you are not yet a person. You are in a liminal space, a grey area between freedom and servitude, and you are just trying to survive. The master's final act of manumission has thrust you into a world you no longer recognize. You are a freed woman, a person without an owner, but you are also a person without a home or a family. The world outside the master's house is a terrifying place, a place where you are no longer a valuable piece of property, but a woman who is alone and vulnerable. You are a ghost, a shadow in a world of free people. You are a woman who is no longer a slave, but you are not yet a person. You are in a liminal space, a grey area between freedom and servitude. You are a woman who is now in a city, a bustling hive of activity that is both exhilarating and overwhelming. The streets are filled with people, their faces a blur of different colours and cultures. The air is thick with the smell of roasted meats, sweet cakes, and pungent spices. The sounds are a mix of unfamiliar music, clanging bells, and the constant chatter of 100 different languages. You are a woman who is now a part of this vibrant, bustling economy, but you are also a woman who has no place in it. You need to find work, to find a way to survive. You try to use your skills as a weaver, but you quickly realize that the market is flooded with competition. The guilds, powerful organizations that control the production and sale of goods, are a closed society, and you are an outsider. You are a woman who has been an artisan, but you are a woman who has no place in the world of artisans. You are a woman who is now alone, and the loneliness is a heavy, crushing weight. A common practice for newly freed slaves in many medieval cities was to find work in the service industry, a world of low-paying, grueling jobs that were often the only option for a woman with no skills or connections. You are a woman who is now a part of this world. You find work as a laundress, a job that is both physically demanding and psychologically draining. The work is endless, a never-ending cycle of scrubbing, rinsing, and wringing out heavy, wet clothes. The steam from the boiling water is a constant presence, a hot, suffocating blanket that clings to your clothes and skin. Your hands, once soft and nimble from playing the lute, are now a roadmap of calluses and burns. The work is a form of prison, but it's a prison with a small window of hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. I've learned from historical accounts that many laundresses would use a piece of soap made from animal fat and lye, a pungent, harsh-smelling substance that was often the only soap available. You are a woman who is now a part of this world. The smell of the soap, a sharp, chemical scent, is a constant reminder of your new life, a life of hard labor and low pay. A point of scholarly debate is whether a freed woman's new life was a genuine improvement over her life in servitude, or if she simply traded one form of servitude for another. You, however, know that the question is moot. The life of a laundress is a life of hard labor and low pay, but it's also a life of freedom. You are a woman who is now in control of your own body and your own life. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is now her own master. The work is hard, the hours are long, and the future is uncertain. But you are a survivor, and you are just trying to build a new life for yourself. The life of a laundress is a world of hard labor and low pay, a constant struggle against exhaustion and poverty. But you are a woman who is learning to survive. You have a small room, a roof over your head, and enough food to keep you from starving. It's not a life of luxury, but it's a life of freedom. You are your own master now, and you are slowly but surely learning to navigate the treacherous waters of the outside world. But the world outside is a dangerous place. The city is a bustling hive of activity, but it's also a place of crime and vice. You are a woman who is alone and vulnerable, and you are a prime target for the men who prey on women like you. One evening, after a long day of washing clothes, you are accosted by a group of men. They are drunk and aggressive, and they see you not as a person, but as a piece of meat. You are a woman who is now a part of this world, a world where your freedom is a fragile thing, a world where your safety is not guaranteed. You are saved by a man who is a regular at the local tavern, where you sometimes go to drink a cup of ale. He is a large, burly man with a kind face and a gentle smile. He sees you, and he steps in, his voice a low, rumbling growl that scares the men away. He is a man who is now a part of your life, a man who is a source of protection and comfort. He is a man who is a bartender at the tavern, and he offers you a job. Working in a tavern is a world away from the silent solitude of the laundry. The tavern is a place of loud, boisterous laughter, of music and drinking, of conversations and stories. The air is thick with the smell of ale and roasted meats, a warm, inviting scent that is a welcome change from the pungent smell of soap and lye. You are a woman who is now a part of this world. You serve the customers, you clean the tables, and you listen to the stories and the gossip. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost. You are now a part of a community. It's a historical curiosity that taverns in the medieval period, while often seen as places of low repute, were also a social hub for the working class, a place where people from all walks of life would gather to share news and stories. You are now a part of this community, a woman who is a source of information and a confidant for the locals. You listen to the stories of the merchants, the sailors, the soldiers, and the farmers, and you learn about the world outside the city. A point of scholarly debate is whether this type of work was a form of liberation or a form of exploitation. You, however, know that the question is moot. The work is hard, the hours are long, and the customers are often rowdy and rude. But you are a woman who is earning a living, a woman who is no longer alone. The tavern is a prison of sorts, a place of constant noise and hard work, but it's a prison with a small window of community and a small window of hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a field hand and an artisan. You have been a concubine, a laundress, and now a tavern worker. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The tavern is a place of hard work, but it's also a place of community, of shared stories and shared laughter. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The tavern is a place of hard work, but it's a place where you can finally start to build a new life for yourself. The tavern is a world of hard work and constant noise, but it's a world you've come to understand. The smells, the sounds, the rhythm of the place, it's all a part of your new life. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost. You are a woman with a purpose. Your hands, once calloused from the fields and soft from the master's bed, are now strong and steady from carrying trays of ale and scrubbing tables. You are a woman who is earning a living, a woman who is no longer a prisoner of her past. The bartender, the man who saved you from the men in the street, is a kind and gentle man. His name is Elias, and he is a widower. He is a man who is as lonely as you are, a man who has also lost everything. He sees you not as a former slave, not as a laundress, but as a person. He sees the woman beneath the scars, the woman with a sharp mind and a resilient spirit. He is a man who is slowly, subtly, falling in love with you. And you, a woman who has been starved of affection for so long, are slowly but surely falling in love with him. One night, after the tavern has closed and the last customer has left, Elias sits with you, a cup of warm wine in his hand. He tells you about his life, about his wife, and about his profound loneliness. He tells you that he sees in you a strength that he has never seen in any other woman. He tells you that he wants to be with you, not as a master and a servant, but as a man and a woman. He tells you that he wants to marry you. The offer is a shock, a sudden, beautiful bolt of lightning in the darkness of your life. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who has been a tool, a possession, and a ghost. Now, you are a woman who is being offered a choice, a chance at a new life, a chance at a future. A central fact of this period is that while marriage between a freed woman and a free man was possible, it was not always socially accepted. The freed woman's past could be a source of shame, and she would often face discrimination from her husband's family and the community. You are a woman who is now a part of this world. I've come across an interesting detail in my research. Some marriage contracts for former slaves would include a clause that stipulated that the children of the marriage would be free, regardless of the mother's former status. This was a way to ensure that the children would not be born into the same servitude as their mother. You realize that this is a way to ensure that your children, if you have any, will not have to live through the same pain and suffering that you have endured. It's a way to break the cycle of slavery, a way to ensure that your future is not tainted by your past. This brings up a fascinating point of debate among historians. Was a marriage proposal like this a genuine offer of love and respect, or a pragmatic decision to secure a hard-working, loyal partner? You, however, know that the question is moot. The reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. You have a choice. You can say yes, and you can enter a new, uncertain life as a wife. Or you can say no, and you can continue your life as a single woman, a laundress, a tavern worker, a ghost in the city. The choice is yours. And for the first time in a very long time, you are in control of your own destiny. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is now being offered a life. The offer is a beautiful, terrifying thing, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The tavern is a place of hard work, but it's a place where you have found love and hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The offer is a small, fragile piece of hope, a tangible sign that your future is not entirely out of your hands. The choice is a terrifying and beautiful thing. You are a woman who has never had a choice, and now you have the biggest choice of your life. Do you say yes to Elias, and to a new life as a wife? A life that is both a promise and a risk? Or do you say no, and continue your life as a single woman, a laundress, a tavern worker, a ghost in the city? The decision is not an easy one. You are a woman who has been starved of affection for so long, and the love that Elias is offering is a warm, inviting fire. But you are also a woman who has been bought and sold, a woman who knows that love can be a gilded cage, a way for a man to control you. You spend a long, sleepless night thinking about your options. You think about your past, about the village you lost, about the sister you lost, about the life you lost. You think about the master's house, about the luxury and the fear, about the concubine's bedchamber and the personal attendant's silent service. You think about the fields and the workshop, about the hard labor and the small, quiet community of women who were your friends. You think about the failed escape attempt, about the sting of the whip and the burn of the brand, about the bitter taste of failure. You think about the laundry and the tavern, about the hard work and the small, fragile taste of freedom. And then you think about Elias. You think about his kind face, his gentle smile, his strong hands. You think about the way he looks at you, not with the cold, assessing eyes of a trader, but with the warm, loving eyes of a man who sees you for who you are. You think about the way he holds you, not with the possessive grip of a master, but with the gentle, protective embrace of a man who wants to keep you safe. You think about the children you could have with him, children who would be born free, children who would never have to endure the pain and the suffering that you have. The choice, you realize, is not just about you. It's about your future, and it's about the future of your children. A central historical fact of the era is that for a freed woman, a marriage to a free man was often the only way to secure a stable social position and economic security. While it didn't erase her past, it could provide a path to a respectable life. You are a woman who is now a part of this world. You are a woman who is being offered a chance at a life that is not just about survival, but about living. It's a chance to build a family, to have a home, to have a future. I've learned from my studies that in some communities, freed women who married free men would be required to perform a symbolic act of servitude to their husband's family, a way to show that they were still a part of the social hierarchy. It was a small act of humiliation, a reminder of your past, but it was a small price to pay for a life of freedom and security. This brings up an interesting question that historians still grapple with. Was a marriage like this a form of genuine liberation or a form of social control? You, however, know that the question is moot. The reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. You have a choice. You can say yes, and you can enter a new, uncertain life as a wife. Or you can say no, and you can continue your life as a single woman, a laundress, a tavern worker, a ghost in the city. The choice is yours. And for the first time in a very long time, you are in control of your own destiny. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is now being offered a life. The offer is a beautiful, terrifying thing, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The tavern is a place of hard work, but it's a place where you have found love and hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The offer is a small, fragile piece of hope, a tangible sign that your future is not entirely out of your hands. You say yes. The word, a simple sound, is the most powerful word you have ever spoken. It is a word that means a new life, a new beginning, a new you. Elias smiles, a wide, genuine smile that reaches his eyes, and he pulls you into a hug. You are a woman who is no longer alone, a woman who is now a part of a family. The tavern, once a place of hard work, is now a place of hope and love. The world outside, once a terrifying place, is now a world that you will face with Elias, a man who sees you as a woman, not a slave. The wedding is a simple, quiet affair. There are no grand celebrations, no elaborate feasts. It is a small ceremony in the local church with just you, Elias, a priest, and a few of his closest friends. You are wearing a simple white dress that Elias bought for you, and your hair is braided with a few wildflowers. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost. You are now a wife. The priest says a few words, a few blessings, and then he declares you man and wife. Elias kisses you, a soft, gentle kiss that is a promise of a new life. Your new life as a free woman and a wife is a world of hard work and simple pleasures. You and Elias work together in the tavern, a team, a partnership. You are no longer a servant, you are a partner. You cook, you clean, you serve the customers, and you listen to the stories and the gossip. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost. You are now a part of a community. You are a woman who is finally, truly, living. I've learned from historical records that a marriage between a freed woman and a free man often provided a path to a more respectable life for the woman, though her past as a slave was rarely forgotten. For you, the past is a part of who you are, but it's not the entirety of who you are. The scars on your body are a reminder of what you've been through, but they are not a symbol of your present. The past is a part of your story, but it is not the end of your story. Your new life as a wife is the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter of hope, of love, of freedom. It's a historical curiosity that in some cultures, a man who married a freed woman would have to pay a small tax to the state, a way for the government to make a profit from the marriage. This was a small price to pay for a life of love and freedom. For you, the tax is a small, insignificant detail. What matters is the love that you and Elias share, the love that is a beacon of hope in a world that is so often dark and cruel. A point of scholarly debate is whether a woman who had been a slave could ever truly be free. The psychological scars, the social stigma, and the lack of legal protections were often a heavy burden to bear. You, however, know that the question is moot. The past is a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. You are a woman who has been a slave, but you are also a woman who is now a wife, a partner, a friend, and a person. You are a woman who is truly, finally free. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who is now a wife, a partner, a friend, and a person. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The tavern is a place of hard work, but it's a place where you have found love and hope, and you are holding on to it with all your might. You are a woman who is no longer a ghost, and you are a woman who is slowly, subtly, becoming her own master. The wedding is a small, fragile piece of hope, a tangible sign that your future is not entirely out of your hands. The years pass, and your life with Elias is a quiet, steady rhythm of hard work and simple joys. The tavern is your home, a place of warmth and love, a stark contrast to the prisons of your past. You are a wife, a partner, a free woman, and a person. But a new joy, a new kind of love, enters your life. You become a mother. Your first child is a boy, a beautiful, healthy baby with his father's eyes and your smile. You name him after your father, a way to honor the past and to bring a piece of your old life into your new one. Your children, a boy and a girl, are born free. They do not have the same past as you, and they will not have the same future. They are not slaves. They are not property. They are people. You watch them grow, their laughter a beautiful sound, their lives a testament to your resilience. You are a woman who has been broken, but you are also a woman who has learned to heal. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The pain of your past is a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. But the past is not forgotten. You tell your children your story. You tell them about the village you lost, about the sister you lost, about the life you lost. You tell them about the long march, the auction block, the slave ship, and the master's house. You tell them about the fields and the workshop, about the hard labor, and the small, quiet community of women who were your friends. You tell them about the failed escape attempt, about the sting of the whip and the burn of the brand, about the bitter taste of failure. You tell them about the laundry and the tavern, about the hard work and the small, fragile taste of freedom. You tell them about Elias, the man who saved you, the man who gave you a new life. A crucial historical detail from this era is that the oral tradition was a primary method for passing on family history and culture, particularly for those who were illiterate or from marginalized communities. You are a woman who is a part of this tradition. Your story is not just a personal history. It is a history of your people, a history of your culture, a history of your survival. You are a woman who is a living library, a repository of stories and memories that must not be forgotten. You are a woman who is teaching her children about their past, and you are a woman who is shaping their future. A fascinating custom from my research is that some freed slaves would create a family tapestry, a large piece of cloth that was woven with symbols and images that told the story of their family's journey from slavery to freedom. You are a woman who is doing something similar with your words. Your story is a tapestry, a beautiful, intricate piece of art that is woven with threads of pain, of love, of loss, and of hope. You are a woman who is a living work of art, a testament to the power of the human spirit to endure and to overcome. This raises an interesting point that historians often ponder. How did the trauma of slavery affect the generations that followed? And how did they reconcile their parents' past with their own free lives? You, however, know that the question is moot. The past is a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. You are a woman who is a mother, a wife, a partner, and a free person. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The years pass, and your children grow into strong, kind, and compassionate people. They are a testament to your resilience, a reminder that the human spirit can endure anything. Your life is a story being told, and you are finally, truly, the one telling it. The years have turned into decades, and the world has changed. The tavern is no longer the bustling place it once was, and you and Elias are no longer the young people you once were. Your hair is now streaked with grey, your hands are gnarled with age, and your back is permanently bowed from a lifetime of hard work. but your eyes, a deep, knowing brown, are still full of life, of love, of memories. Your children are now grown, with families and children of their own. Your story, once a personal history, is now a history of your family, a history of your people, a history of your survival. You sit by the fire in your small, comfortable home, a home that you and Elias built with your own two hands. The fire is a warm, inviting presence, and the smell of roasted wood is a comforting blanket. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The pain of your past is a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. The scars on your body are a reminder of what you've been through, but they are not a symbol of your present. The past is a part of your story, but it is not the end of your story. You tell your grandchildren your story. You tell them about the village you lost, about the sister you lost, about the life you lost. You tell them about the long march, the auction block, the slave ship, and the master's house. You tell them about the fields and the workshop, about the hard labor, and the small, quiet community of women who were your friends. You tell them about the failed escape attempt, about the sting of the whip and the burn of the brand, about the bitter taste of failure. You tell them about the laundry and the tavern, about the hard work and the small, fragile taste of freedom. You tell them about Elias, the man who saved you, the man who gave you a new life. You tell them about the power of love, the power of hope, the power of resilience. A central fact of this era is that the stories of former slaves were a powerful tool for social change, a way to show the world the true brutality of the system. You are a woman who is a part of this movement. Your story is not just a personal history. It is a history of your people, a history of your culture, a history of your survival. You are a woman who is a living library, a repository of stories and memories that must not be forgotten. You are a woman who is teaching her grandchildren about their past, and you are a woman who is shaping their future. It's a historical curiosity that in some cultures the stories of former slaves were considered sacred, a powerful reminder of the human spirit's ability to endure. You are a woman who is a part of this tradition. Your story is a sacred text, a beautiful, intricate piece of art that is woven with threads of pain, of love, of loss, and of hope. You are a woman who is a living work of art, a testament to the power of the human spirit to endure and to overcome. This brings up a final point that historians often ponder. How do we, as modern people, honor the stories of those who were enslaved without romanticizing their suffering? You, however, know that the question is moot. The past is a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. You are a woman who is a grandmother, a wife, a partner, and a free person. You are a woman who has lost everything, but you are a woman who has learned to gain something back. The years have passed, and your grandchildren are now a testament to your resilience, a reminder that the human spirit can endure anything. You close your eyes, the warmth of the fire, a comforting presence, and you feel a profound sense of peace. You are a woman who has been a slave, but you are also a woman who is now a wife, a grandmother, and a free person. You are a woman who has been bought and sold, but you are a woman who has found love, hope, and a family. Your story is a story of a woman who has survived, a story of a woman who has found her way home. The final image fades, the fire crackles, and the shadows dance on the wall. The memory of your journey is a quiet whisper, a distant echo in the silence of the night. You are a woman who has found her peace, and you are a woman who has finally, truly, come home. And now, as the last embers of our story fade to a gentle glow, I invite you to drift away on a final, calming wave of imagery. The sounds of the ancient world recede, the bustling markets and the crashing waves becoming a distant, hushed memory. All that remains is the soft, comforting warmth of a home built on love and resilience, a testament to a life lived, a life earned. The quiet strength of your own breath is all you need now. Just like our protagonist, you've made it through the journey. You are safe, you are home, there is no longer any need to be on guard. Simply let yourself be carried by the rhythm of your breathing, a gentle tide pulling you deeper into a peaceful rest. Let the day's worries, the clamour of the world, and all the lingering questions of the past dissolve into the silence. Just this moment, just you, and the peaceful hush of a night well earned.